Tonight, Scotland's housing crisis. Builders warn that unless the Scottish Government make changes to planning laws, we can't meet the demand for new homes.
We're at 100,000 deficit in housing at the moment already, and 700,000 households with housing needs.
Also making the headlines, a 19-year-old Scottish student dies on holiday in Spain. Emma Ramsey fell from a hotel balcony in Ibiza in the early hours of yesterday morning. The women now all studying medicine in Scotland after the Taliban forced them to abandon their degrees in Afghanistan.
And in sport, Kilmarnock head to Denmark on the next leg of their European adventure.
I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. House builders are warning that unless the Scottish Government make changes to planning legislation, the country will not meet demand for new homes. One builder has told STV News getting approval for new homes has jumped from 6 months to 3 years.
26,000 additional workers are required within the sector to fill a major skills shortage and help the country meet building targets. It comes as members from the industry met with the Scottish Government. Vanessa Taff has more.
Lee is a third-year apprentice joiner. She's learning skills that the construction industry is crying out for.
I've just always liked working with my hands and kind of being active, being out. I couldn't imagine sitting at a desk. We do college alongside, obviously, working on site, so that's quite good. That gives you different aspects of things, like building things before you come on site. Gives you a better idea of what you're doing, and you come here and kind of apply those things that you've learned.
This construction company have created 3 jobs from just this one site alone. But with Scotland lagging behind on building targets, the industry needs to find a way to meet that workforce demand with the right kind of skills. An extra 26,000 construction workers are needed in Scotland by 2028 to meet building demands. That's a skills shortage of more than 5,000 workers a year. Without an adequate workforce, the sector faces building delays and economic growth challenges. For companies tasked with growing the sector, the time frame for getting new homes approved and through planning is stalling progress.
The duration for us to even get a site started is probably, going from 6 months to even sometimes up to 3 years before we're even on site. In addition to that, we have seen, repercussions of interest rates, inflation, buyer sentiment of confidence in the market.
Targets to build social homes and affordable homes in Scotland are the worst on record since the 1980s. The UK government have set out ambitious building and planning reforms. The sector here are hoping for the same.
I'm not confident at the moment until we see innovation, ambition for the housing supply in Scotland through the Scottish Government changing things, that we will start reversing the decline in housing starts and completions. We're at 100,000 deficit in housing at the moment already, and 700,000 households with housing needs.
The Scottish Government say they're working with those in the industry to improve planning resources and practice. Building more affordable homes and youth employment in the sector go hand in hand. But without dumping a load of cash into the industry, the prospect of building more homes won't measure up. Vanessa Taff, STV News.
A 19-year-old law student has died after falling from a balcony in Ibiza. Emma Ramsey from Hamilton had been enjoying a holiday with friends in San Antonio when she fell from the 6th floor of a hotel in the early hours of yesterday morning. Well, our chief reporter Sharon Frew is here. So Sharon, what more do you know?
Well, Emma Ramsey, who had been studying at Strathclyde University, shared pictures and videos on social media just hours before her death. She had been enjoying the Ibiza party scene with her friends. Paramedics were called to a seafront hotel in San Antonio shortly after 3 a.m. yesterday morning, responding to calls that someone had fallen from a balcony. The young woman sustained fatal injuries, and today it was confirmed, following many tributes, that the 19-year-old who died is Emma Ramsey from Hamilton. Now, Emma's mother, Barbara Smith, described her daughter as her best friend in the whole whole world. In a post on social media, she said, "I am going to miss you more than words will ever express." Emma's university and her former school have also expressed their shock and sadness. The University of Strathclyde said Emma was a much-loved member of her student community. Everyone offers their deepest condolences to Emma's family and all those affected by this terrible incident. Support is being offered to the law students' classmates. Emma was a former head girl at St John Ogilvie High School in Hamilton. Her former head teacher has described her as incredibly kind, hard-working and talented. Lanarkshire MSP Monica Lennon has also paid tribute. She says the news of Emma's tragic death has shocked an entire community. The Foreign Office has confirmed they are offering support to Emma's family.
Sharon, thank you for that.
Now, a group of female Afghan medical students say a Scottish charity has saved their lives after bringing them to Scotland to finish their studies. The Norgrove Foundation was set up by the parents of Linda Norgrove, a Scots aid worker killed in Afghanistan in 2010. It's brought 19 students here after the Taliban forced them to abandon their degrees.
The charity has been working with the UK government through the Scotland office as part of a 3-year campaign. The students will now study in universities across the country. Vanessa Kennedy reports.
It's been a long and emotional journey for these medical students. After enduring a 3-year wait, they're finally being welcomed to Scotland. All 19 had been studying in Afghanistan, but when the Taliban took over 3 years ago, all girls were forced to stop attending schools and universities.
There were other limitations about what we wear or where we go. I did not want to be a girl. It was, I used to think with myself if I were a boy, I would not experience this condition. And, they give us the feeling or the sense that being a girl is a kind of crime.
Back in 2010, Lorna and John Norgrove set up a foundation to help girls like Zara who've been affected by the conflict in Afghanistan. The charity is in memory of their daughter Linda, an aid worker who was captured by the Taliban and killed during a mission to rescue her.
Afghanistan's a very corrupt country. We're afraid of giving money to large organisations and it disappearing. So we tended to go for small projects where we could see what benefit we were doing. And the whole thing has grown. We started a scholarship scheme initially with 1 student, and then it was 5, and then we ended up with 160 students. And because Linda loved Afghanistan, it was helping women and children out there.
After 3 years of obstacles and negotiations, the foundation campaigned to bring as many female medical students to Scotland as possible to allow them to continue their studies fully funded. The Scotland office worked with the Scottish Government and funding regulations were eventually amended to allow all 19 girls to have their medical degrees paid for.
We looked at regulatory changes that have allowed the women to travel on a student visa. It is the case they could always have travelled on a student visa, but of course they would have had to pay exorbitant fees that would have associated themselves with that. So we looked at how we could support them in terms of the fees and also in terms of the free tuition.
The fact that they could be here in Scotland means such a huge amount. I know they'll have a fantastic welcome in their student communities and in the wider cities in which they'll be studying.
For the students, it means being far from their families, but that their dreams of becoming doctors are closer to being realised.
There is no word to express our gratitude. Actions speak louder than words, so we will also do that. Me personally, I will try my best to study hard and show them that, yeah, you have chosen the best people of Afghanistan.
They'll now attend their pre-medical courses at Glasgow, St Andrews, Dundee and Aberdeen universities. After growing up in a country gripped by conflict, these women now have the hope of a better life and the chance to go from being helped to helping others. Vanessa Kennedy, STV News, Edinburgh.
Scotland's whisky industry is celebrating a decision by Brazil to grant special protected status to the national drink. The legal recognition of Scotch whiskey is expected to give distillers better access to South America's largest economy.
The Trade Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, says the UK government is also monitoring the situation over trade tariffs with the US closely, amid concerns from the industry they could be reimposed in 2 years. Our political correspondent Ewan Petrie reports.
The The UK Trade Secretary put the seal on a decision by Brazil to give legal recognition of Scotch Whiskey's special status. The move is worth £25 million over 5 years in an industry where exports top $5 billion.
The special status that Scotch Whisky will have in Brazil is a really important way to make sure that we're maximising what is a hugely successful product, but we can tackle things like counterfeiting and the illegal market that can exist sometimes in passing off products as Scotch whisky.
The whisky industry has faced turbulent times in recent years. The US imposed a tariff of 25% on single malt for 18 months, costing the industry the equivalent of £1 million a day. There are concerns that tariff could be reimposed at the end of its 5-year suspension in 2026.
We are always concerned about trade disputes where Scotch can get hit as collateral damage, and we're looking to the government to help protect us against that. The US is our biggest market, so any reintroduction of tariffs would have a serious effect on our industry.
Where are we in discussions in terms of trying to give reassurance to the industry that it won't be reimposed?
It is something we monitor very closely. There are, of course, trade ramifications that will come out of the US presidential election this year. That decision is for the US people, but of course when we're looking at what the consequences might be of any kind of change of trade policy, this particular area is a very specific area of attention.
The whisky industry is also pushing the new UK government to secure lower tariffs with India as part of a trade deal that would further improve the outlook for the sector. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
A former police officer who subjected 3 former partners to violent and sexual abuse has been jailed for 3 years and 9 months. Christopher Ferguson was found guilty of 9 charges, including voyeurism. The 31-year-old from Wishaw targeted his victims in the Lanarkshire area and also at Glasgow's Helen Street police station. More politicians from every party in Scotland are backing the campaign to save jobs at a factory employing disabled workers in Larbert. 60 staff at Haven make nursing uniforms, but the contract with the NHS hasn't been renewed. The charity which runs the company say they'd have no choice but to make everyone redundant if they don't get a new health service contract. Scrapping proposals to introduce free bus travel for asylum seekers will have a devastating impact on their mental health and well-being, according to those who support them. The Scottish Government had set aside £2 million to pilot the scheme, but that has now been taken off the table. Ollie Dickinson has the full story.
Since arriving in Scotland, public transport has been a lifeline for Mohammed. With no right to work and therefore the ability to earn, he and other asylum seekers use Glasgow's buses most days.
One of the main needs for asylum is to go around, visit GP, visit the lawyer appointment, and take the kids around, especially for those families who have kids.
Last year, the Scottish Government announced a range of measures to improve the asylum system. One of them was to make bus travel free. But earlier this week, that plan was scrapped as part of a range of cost-saving measures.
Unfortunately, when we heard the negative news, let's say, everyone was impacted and turned them down, really.
I think it's a huge disappointment. It's devastating for our members, especially for those who has been in the journey of campaigning from the very beginning. I think it was a light of hope for many people that they were going to be able to have that freedom of movement in Scotland.
People in the asylum system are unable to work under UK employment law, despite many of them wanting to. Westminster provides just £49.18 per week for people in uncatered accommodation. Those in hotels get just £8.86.
If they're based in rural areas, the lawyers are usually based around the cities. So for them to go and travel to access that legal right, especially in hotel accommodations, for them to access any form of services, any form of information centres, it's just not possible for them. And then for people to meet to access community services, so whether that's going to colleges or attending ESOL classes, English classes, or even volunteering, this was a vital, life-changing moment.
The Scottish Government says pressures on the public purse have led to difficult decisions being made.
There'll be eligibility for asylum seekers in the under 22 and the over 60s concessionary travel schemes that are existing. So anybody who's in those categories will still continue to have access to concessionary bus travel. But the government's facing acute financial pressures, and we have to make some hard choices, I'm afraid.
For Mohammed and others like him, they've been left hoping the scheme can be revived, and this isn't the end of the road. Ollie Dickinson, STV News.
Well, that takes us onto sport now with Jamie and some big games coming up in Europe, Jamie.
Yeah, Kellyanne, we've got two of our clubs in Europe this week. Really big games. Hearts going in with their first tie. They're going off to the Czech Republic. Kilmarnock had a great result in the last round and they've been rewarded with a really tough game over in Denmark.
You're also going to be looking at the Women's Open Championship at St Andrews.
Yeah, Stephanie's up there for us just now. The best players in women's golf are up there and they're certainly getting some conditions up on the coast.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
Good evening. Hearts and Kilmarnock have flown out for their crunch European playoff first legs. Stephen Naismith's side are in the Czech Republic as they prepare to face Victoria Pilsen, boosted by the news that Frankie Kent is back in training. Meanwhile, Killie are in Denmark with Copenhagen lying in wait tomorrow night. Here's Ronnie Charters.
Getting prepared for the start of their Euro trip. It's Europa League time for Stephen Naismith and his players as they look to secure their place in the group stages of the competition. Good news for Hearts fans today, with Frankie Kent back in training ahead of their opening match tomorrow night. The Tynecastle side face Victoria Pilsen of the Czech Republic in the first leg of the playoff round. But what should they expect? Pilsen, currently second in the Czech First League, unbeaten in their opening 5 matches. They have a squad valuation of approximately £34 million, almost double that of Hearts. Naismith's men will play in the Dusan Arena tomorrow night, which has a capacity of just under 12,000. A key player for the Czechs is 23-year-old Pavel Sulk, who scored 22 goals last season and already has 3 goals in 7 games this season. And of course, in terms of European pedigree, Pilsen were in the Conference League quarter-finals last year and the Champions League group stages the year before. It hasn't been the best of starts this season for Hearts, out of the League Cup and still without a win in the Premiership.
Collectively, there's lots to improve. But as I said, the fact that sometimes when you come against people that you're not overly familiar with, I think that could be a bit refreshing. And the guys, as I said, they've got so much to play for and it's a welcome distraction.
Elsewhere, Kilmarnock are preparing for their European challenge on Thursday night as they take on the might of Copenhagen. Derek McInnes and his players got their final preparations at Rugby Park this morning before flying out to Denmark ahead of the first leg of their Conference League playoff. They were joined by new signing Jack Burrows, who could make the squad for the match tomorrow night after his loan move from Coventry City. So what are Killie coming up against when they face the Danes? Well, Copenhagen are currently second in the Superliga. They have a squad valuation of £63.5 million, which dwarfs Killie's valuation of only £8 million. Killie will walk out at the Parkin Stadium tomorrow night, which holds just over 38,000. Former Celtic winger Mohamed Elyounoussi is someone Derek McInnes will have to be wary of. And the Danes are no stranger to European competition, having made it to the Champions League last 16 last season, losing out to Manchester City.
They'll be looking forward to tomorrow night. It's a huge occasion. It's a massive match for the players, the manager, the club, everyone involved with Kilmarnock Football Club. It's such a iconic moment in their history. So, yeah, they won't want it to pass them by either.
These were the scenes in the last round after Killie sent Tromsø home packing. What Derek McInnes and his men would do to repeat that feat tomorrow night. Ronnie Charters, STV Sport.
A Scottish FA report into youth development says a lack of strategy is hampering efforts to bring talented teenagers through into first-team football. The report found that fewer players between the ages of 16 and 21 are being given opportunities to play in Scotland than in comparable-sized nations. Former player and manager Marvin Bartley believes rule changes could help.
the end goal is we want more players, being available for the national team, being exposed to football at an earlier age. So some of it, I definitely agree with, and I think are workable things. Some things that might be more difficult in terms of trying to get those young players into first team environments. How do we do that? Do we make it mandatory in the top flight to have potentially an under 21 homegrown player within your starting lineup? I think things like that we have to look at, because if it's left as an option, it's very difficult for managers with the lifespan of a manager.
Golf now, and Katrina Matthew has revealed this week's Women's Open Championship at St Andrews will be her last. The star-studded field has assembled to take on the Old Course in the final major of the season, as Stephanie Daly reports.
Yes, I'm here at the home of golf, where the Women's Open swings into action tomorrow morning. The world's top golfers are bidding to write their names into the history books here at the famous Old Course. And Scotland's Katrina Matthew today announced that this will be her last Open Championship. She, of course, won the Open in 2009. And as you can see, it's a little bit windy here tonight. It's going to get a little bit windier tomorrow, so the elements are set to play their part. The stage is set at golf's most iconic venue as the Old Course in St Andrews prepares to host a world-class field of the best 144 female golfers. It's the third time in the event's history that it's been held at the home of golf. Ahead of the tournament, Scotland's Katrina Matthew has announced this will be her last Open, having won the event in 2009.
I think it's my 30th in a row and going to be my last one. I think what better place than when a Scottish player to finish at St Andrews. So always loved it here, and it's just, however big this event is, it's even bigger when it's at St Andrews. So I just thought it was the perfect opportunity to play my last one.
All eyes will be on world number one Nelly Korda, who's never played a competitive round here. The American is hoping to inspire the next generation of Scottish golfing talent.
That's probably one of my favorite things about playing tournaments, is seeing all the young girls and boys come out and follow and tell me that, I'm their role model, or I'm the reason that they've picked up the game of golf, because I had role models too that made me pick up the game of golf.
How this week's story will end is anyone's guess, but the elements are likely to ensure there's a few twists and turns. Stephanie Daly, STV Sport.
Just finally, and in the last few minutes, St Mirren have announced the signing of midfielder Killian Phillips on loan from Crystal Palace. You can read more on that and all the day's stories on the STV Sport website. That's all from me for this evening.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
I'm not sure we can face this anymore, but here's the weather with Sean.
Light winds rolling in from the west. We'll be joined by some very welcomed ice creams. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. A horrible evening out there. Plenty of rain around. That rain's going to remain heavy, and it's just going to continue all night long, which does mean that rainfall will continue to mount up, and the amount from today, added on to what we'll see tonight in some spots, could go on for about 100 millimetres in the wettest parts of Argyll and Bute, and also across the Highlands, particularly wet around the hills of Mull and also Lochaber. So possibility of some flooding issues, an awful lot of surface water on those roads, so take care on those roads, especially during the dark, because a lot of the roads could end up quite submerged, especially country roads, and also particularly wet across parts of Renfrewshire and Inverclyde. Tomorrow, though, the weather will be a lot better. A lot of dry, sunny weather. There will be some showers around, mainly across northwestern parts. We still hang on to that blustery wind, mind you. Temperatures 14, 15 degrees Celsius. It will feel cool in that wind, but at least we'll have a little bit of sunshine to enjoy in between those showers tomorrow. Now, an awful lot more rain to come tomorrow night and into Friday, although this time it's not Argyll and Bute and the Highlands. The worst of the rain will be across Dumfries and Galway, South Lanarkshire, the borders. In some spots we could see about 30 to 40 millimetres of rain, but that's going to add on to that rainfall that we've already seen this week. Some quite extreme rainfall, Renfrewshire and Inverclyde, so added on, we could end up that this week we've seen a good few weeks worth of rain in some spots. Then on Friday that clears away to sunshine and blustery showers, mostly in the west.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally from us to the Fringe, where we've seen some international talents in the past few weeks. Well, tonight it's the turn of the Scots.
Yes, homegrown stars are also packing in the audiences. Our entertainment reporter Laura Boyd has been chatting to a couple of them.
Well, it's the final few days of the Fringe, and if you're looking for something to see, I know it can be quite overwhelming with thousands of acts coming from all over the world. But my advice to you is also to catch something closer to home, because there are so many Scots taking to the stage this year, and I'm delighted to be joined by two of Scotland's finest, Susie McCabe and Paul Wack. Susie, I'll start with you. No stranger to the Fringe. What do you love about it?
Well, it's always a tough gig, the Fringe, because you kind of need to prepare all year for it, but the atmosphere's amazing.
Well, you're both proud Glaswegians, but I remember you talking about coming through to Edinburgh and how you kind of got a nosebleed coming through here and you weren't sure how the audience was going to react to you. How has it been?
It's been great, it's been fantastic. I love the audiences, and what I really like about the Fringe as well is that, see, if you do a no perfect job, you can be like, oh, it's the Fringe, it's meant to be makeshift. That was part of my act. And last night in the middle of my show, for the first time in history, forgot what I was talking about completely, you could just play it off, and the audiences, I think, are a lot more forgiving, or at least mine have been. So thanks for coming to anyone that did and didn't walk out.
Why should people come see the Scots at the Fringe?
Because some people do accidentally think that during the Fringe that Edinburgh is a borough of London, and it's not. There's lots and lots and lots of talented Scottish people here who maybe don't always get the shout outs that they deserve, and I come and support your local, I was going to say local heroes, your local comics. It might be your hero, I don't know.
And finally, where can we see you both if we can't get to the Fringe?
Well, my next prep will be for the Comedy Festival, so that'll be sometime in March, and we just go again.
But the Merchant of Menace is on tour too.
The Merchant of Menace will be on tour, will be...
Did you forget about that there? Paul, where can we see you?
You can see my show All Sorts, which is a sketch show, and it's at the Glasgow Armadillo on the 22nd of November, so there's lots of tickets to sell. Bring your pals, bring your mom, bring your dad. I don't have a dad, so if anybody's got a spare dad lying about, bring him.
You can have mine. You're sorted, right? I'll bring. Guys, thank you so much. We know you've got shows to do. Make sure you come and check out all the Scots at the Fringe.
So that's where you'll see them, and you'll see us tomorrow at 6.
From all of us here, thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Good night.